Hello to everyone across Africa and to everyone who believes this continent has the right to shape its own future. There are moments when a single location becomes more important than an entire region. Today, that location is Aguelhok. New warnings from FLA and JNIM have raised tensions across northern Mali. Reports suggest that armed groups may be gathering forces around Kidal and preparing for a possible operation against Aguelhok. At the same time, the Malian Armed Forces, known as FAMa, have strengthened defenses, reinforced key positions, and continued airstrikes against suspected enemy locations. But this is not only a military story. This is a question about security in the Sahel, the future of Kidal, and the determination of Mali to maintain control over its territory. In geopolitics, no crisis appears by accident. So the real question is this: are we witnessing another insurgent threat? Or are we approaching a battle that could reshape the balance of power in northern Mali? In this video, we will examine the growing danger around Aguelhok and why this moment may be one of the most important turning points of the current campaign. Follow this channel if you want to understand Africa through Africa's own perspective. In recent days, security sources have reported increased activity by FLA and JNIM around the Kidal region. These reports come at a time when pressure on armed groups has been increasing due to military operations and continued surveillance. Many observers believe Aguelhok has become a primary target because of its strategic importance. A successful attack could weaken government positions and reduce pressure on Kidal. For FAMa, however, holding Aguelhok is essential. Losing ground here could affect the wider campaign in northern Mali. That is why every movement is being watched closely. The stakes are rising, tensions are growing, and the next phase of this conflict may be approaching faster than many expected. Aguelhok has become one of the most important military positions in northern Mali, and understanding its significance is essential to understanding the current crisis. Located between key operational areas, Aguelhok serves as a strategic link connecting military movements across the north. It sits along routes that influence access to Kidal and nearby regions, making it far more than a remote desert outpost. For FAMa, controlling Aguelhok means maintaining pressure on armed groups operating around Kidal. It helps secure military supply routes, supports surveillance operations, and provides a forward position from which future campaigns can be launched. As long as Aguelhok remains firmly under government control, the pressure on insurgent networks continues to grow. For FLA and JNIM, however, the situation looks very different. Many analysts believe that any efforts to reduce the growing military pressure around Kidal would require challenging the government presence at Aguelhok. A successful attack could disrupt operations, force the redeployment of troops, and create breathing room for armed groups facing increasing constraints. This is why recent threats have attracted so much attention. The battle for Aguelhok is not simply about controlling a military base. It is about controlling momentum. Every side involved understands that the outcome of any major confrontation there could influence future operations throughout northern Mali. The importance of Aguelhok also explains why FAMa has invested heavily in strengthening its position. Reinforcements, defensive preparations, and continuous monitoring of nearby areas all indicate that military planners recognize what is at stake. In many conflicts, there are locations that become symbols of a larger struggle. Aguelhok is rapidly becoming one of those places. Whoever holds Aguelhok gains more than territory. They gain an operational advantage, greater freedom of movement, and a stronger position in the contest for Kidal. That is why the growing tension around this town is being watched so closely across Mali and throughout the Sahel region. The growing tension around Aguelhok has forced the Malian Armed Forces to prepare for multiple possibilities. Military planners understand that any serious attempt to challenge government control in this area could have consequences far beyond a single battlefield. Over the past months, FAMa has increased its presence across northern Mali through a combination of ground operations, surveillance missions, and sustained airstrikes. The objective has been clear: maintain pressure on armed groups, disrupt their movements, and deny them the ability to regroup freely. This approach reflects the broader security strategy associated with transitional President Assimi Goita. Supporters of Goita argue that his administration has placed national sovereignty at the center of military decision-making. Rather than relying primarily on external forces to secure the country, the current strategy emphasizes strengthening Malian capabilities and expanding the operational reach of FAMa. For many Malians, the defense of Aguelhok represents more than a military mission. It represents a test of whether the state can maintain authority in regions that have experienced years of instability and conflict. The commitment to defend positions such as Aguelhok is also closely linked to the wider goals of the Alliance of Sahel states. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have increasingly emphasized regional cooperation in confronting common security threats. Any major development in northern Mali therefore carries significance beyond national borders. At the operational level, FAMa has continued to rely on intelligence gathering, rapid response capabilities, and air power to maintain the initiative. Military leaders appear determined to avoid being placed in a purely defensive posture. That determination may prove critical in the weeks ahead. As pressure grows around Kidal, the ability of FAMa to hold key positions, maintain morale, and sustain operational momentum could play a decisive role in shaping the next phase of the conflict. For supporters of the current strategy, Aguelhok has become a symbol of resilience, sovereignty, and the belief that Mali must ultimately secure its future through its own strength and determination. Modern conflict in the Sahel is changing rapidly, and one of the biggest reasons is the growing use of drone technology. What was once a battlefield dominated by pickup trucks and small arms now includes aerial surveillance, precision observation, and increasingly sophisticated unmanned systems. Reports from across the region indicate that armed groups have become more effective at using drones for reconnaissance and battlefield awareness. Even simple drone operations can provide valuable information about troop movements, defensive positions, and supply routes. This development creates new challenges for military planners. Any future confrontation around Aguelhok is likely to involve not only fighters on the ground, but also efforts to gather intelligence from the air. As a result, maintaining surveillance and counter-surveillance capabilities has become an essential part of modern military operations. At the same time, the conflict continues to attract international attention. Western governments and media organizations have frequently criticized Mali's current security approach, particularly its growing cooperation with Russia and its departure from previous partnerships. Critics argue that the strategy carries risks and raises concerns about long-term stability. Supporters of the Malian position offer a different perspective. They argue that every sovereign nation has the right to choose its own security partners and determine the policies it believes are necessary to protect its territory. From this viewpoint, the central issue is not which foreign partner is involved, but whether Mali can successfully restore security and maintain national unity. This debate extends beyond Mali itself. It raises broader questions about sovereignty, external influence, and the ability of African nations to define their own strategic priorities. Perhaps the most important question is this: who benefits when northern Mali remains unstable? The answer is far from simple, but many across the region believe lasting stability can only be achieved when African nations have the ability to make security decisions based on their own interests rather than external expectations. That question continues to shape the political and military landscape surrounding Aguelhok today. As tensions continue to rise around Aguelhok, several possible scenarios could shape the next stage of the conflict. The first and most favorable scenario for FAMa is the successful defense of Aguelhok. If government forces maintain control of the area, pressure on Kidal is likely to continue increasing. Armed groups would face greater challenges in moving supplies, coordinating operations, and maintaining freedom of movement across northern Mali. In this scenario, FAMa would strengthen its position and preserve the momentum of recent military operations. The second scenario involves a large-scale attack by FLA and JNIM. Such an operation would almost certainly increase violence across the region and force both sides into a more intense phase of confrontation. While success would not be guaranteed for the attackers, the objective would likely be to disrupt military pressure and demonstrate that they still possess offensive capabilities. A third possibility is a diversionary strategy. Rather than focusing exclusively on Aguelhok, armed groups could attempt to create pressure in multiple areas at the same time. This approach could be designed to stretch military resources and create opportunities elsewhere on the battlefield. Regardless of which scenario emerges, one reality remains clear. Aguelhok has become far more than a military position. It has become a symbol of the broader struggle over security, sovereignty, and the future direction of northern Mali. What we are witnessing today is not simply another battlefield update. It is a test of strategy, endurance, and political will. Because when a nation faces challenges to its territorial integrity, the outcome can influence far more than military maps. In the days ahead, attention will remain focused on Aguelhok and Kidal, not only to see what happens next, but to understand what those events may mean for Mali, the alliance of Sahel states, and the wider future of the region. Follow this channel if you want to understand Africa through Africa's own perspective. Because in our next analysis, we will examine the deeper geopolitical forces shaping events across northern Mali and the Sahel. History does not stand with the strongest. It stands with those who understand the rules of the game.